Hello, this is Katie with Sola Wood Flowers. Today we are going to be making a corsage as requested. We've had a lot of requests for this one, and so we're excited to do it. We're going to start with our Sola Wood flowers naturally and a few different types of filler. Here we're using some lavender and some baby's breath, but you can use whatever type of filler you want or whatever matches the theme you're going with. We also have our wood flower dye as well as our Sola softener. And then we are going to be attaching it to a piece of lace. This is easily wrapped around the wrist, so you can wear it for weddings, dances, or whatever you're making your corsage for. We're going to start with the bowl. About a cereal-sized bowl is fine, and we're going to add some water into it. You may want to do a little bit of testing with your colors before getting started. Now we're going to go ahead and add some Sola softener to it. The Sola softener is great for making sure your flowers stay soft and pliable and they don't crack and break. Now we're going to go ahead and add our wood flower dye. Like I said, the testing might be helpful beforehand, but you're going to add as much or as little dye as you want. The more dye you use, the more vibrant your colors. The less dye, the more subtle. Now you're going to mix it really, really well. The dye tends to want to sink to the bottom of the bowl, so you want to just make sure that it's stirred really, really well. Then we're going to go ahead and dip our flowers. You can use your hands, or here we're going to use a toothpick just to kind of keep our hands clean. And you want to make sure that that flower is saturated evenly and that all the sides get dipped into your dye, water, and softener mixture. Let the excess dye and water drip off, and then you're going to set it aside to dry. Then you're going to go ahead and get started on your next color. Here we're using a darker green. Same thing, add your water, your Sola softener, and your dye. Mix it really well, and you're ready to dip your next flower. One important thing to remember when dyeing your flowers, you want to make sure you give them ample time to dry. You don't want to dye your flowers right before you're leaving, taking a corsage to an event or anything like that. You want to make sure that your flowers are nice and dry. If they're not dry completely, the glue will have a hard time sticking to them. So just make sure that you dye, 24 hours or a day or two beforehand. That way your flowers can come dry completely and you don't have to worry about any issues with the glue sticking. Now that our flowers are dyed and dry, they are ready to go. You want to gather your supplies, whatever fillers you will be using, your glue, and your lace. Now we're going to lay our lace out flat. We want to center our corsage into the middle of the lace. We have a glue mat underneath just so our glue isn't running through the lace and sticking to the table or a tablecloth. Add a little bit of glue to the back of your flower, and then you're going to attach it right to that lace. Position it however you would like, and then hold it for just a few seconds until the glue is tacky and it's not going to be moving around anymore. On to our next flower. As you can see, we're mixing up our colors a little bit. We have our more avocado green, and then we're using a deeper green now. Let that glue dry just a little bit, just so it's tacky enough that it's not going to be moving around. We like to try and test out our flowers before actually gluing them. Just kind of stick it in the place that you think you want it to go to make sure it has the right look for you, and then glue it on after. That way you're not having to rip the flowers off if you're not quite happy with it. Now that we have our flowers glued and ready to go, we're ready for my favorite part, which is adding the filler. We're going to start with a little bit of baby's breath here. I'm just tearing it apart into smaller chunks. That just makes it more easily managed, a lot easier to use and kind of get into the smaller spaces. When you're working with a corsage, you are dealing with little, maybe little holes in between flowers, in between petals, things like that. So smaller bunches will be helpful. Add a bit of glue to the end of the filler. Then you're going to place it wherever you would like. You want to make sure that it attaches to either the back of one of the flowers where it's sturdy or directly to that lace. If you don't, if you just kind of stick it in blindly, you might not have the glue attached to anything, and then you'll lose that piece of filler. Onto our next piece. Again, a smaller little piece of filler cut down to the size that we need it, adding a bit of glue, and then we're going to add this piece to our corsage as well. Now we're on to our last type of filler, and we're just going to add a few little pieces in as a little bit of an accent. As you can see, we are slightly moving the flowers just a little bit, just so we can squeeze those ends of those filler in there and get them glued and attached to our corsage securely. Now that you have all of your flowers and filler added, your corsage is done. They look beautiful, they're pretty easy to make, and they're perfect for many events, weddings, proms, school dances, and you can just easily tie it in a bow on the wearer's wrist.